Can somebody confirm you can hear me? Can somebody confirm you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. All right, before we begin, are there any questions? You can notice that the Zoom lecture is still, the file is still working, so my computer is going to be a little slow. We'll finish up in a few more minutes here. All right, I didn't hear any questions, so let's move on with the lab. Today is January 21st, and we're going to be discussing Lab 3, Microscope Basics. You should have read the textbook chapter 3 through the end of the session on compound light microscopy. So I don't need that anymore. More of that. Lab 3, Microscope Basics. Let me see if there's anything I need to talk about. The majority of the students have asked to have the labs graded 2 times. There's only one student who wanted the lab graded 1 time. So we will grade all future labs 2 times. And I stated during the lecture that if I get the grading done by Wednesday morning, then the second grading of the lab will be due that Saturday at 11:59 p.m. However, if I do not get the grading of the lab done by Wednesday morning, then you will have a week from that Saturday. So you have another week. Good. The lecture Zoom page just finalized, so now my computer will work a little faster. You only need to turn in the lab the second time if you do not get 100% on the first time. And if you turn it in for the second time, the grading of the second time will take precedence. So you will get the second grading of the lab. I've only once had a student whose grade actually decreased in one lab, and she changed an answer that was incorrect to one that was, she changed an answer that was correct to one that was incorrect, and then she changed one that was incorrect and it was still incorrect. And so beyond that, I've only had one student who the second grading ever decreased. So the vast majority of the students, the second grading of the lab, your score will increase. Anything else I need to talk about? I got the second grading of lab 2 done, I think last night, and also got the worksheet 2 done last night. The labs are the only assignments in this class besides maybe some extra credit like the practice quiz, which you get extra credit on. Those are the only assignments that you can turn in 2 times. All quizzes, all lecture assignments, all exams like the final, you can only take it 1 time. Any question about any of that? All right. Lab 3, Microscope Basics. Understand that microscopes are expensive and easily damaged, and so there are certain protocols for their care and use. Please follow the instructions carefully, even though you're not going to be handling microscopes, so you can't damage a real microscope. You do need to know how to handle and take care of a microscope, and you will be quizzed on it. In today's lab, there's some video clips and there's some online exercises, meaning there's a virtual lab in this lab module. Okay, online learners will not be physically using a microscope. However, upon completion of this lab module, you should be able to one, locate and name the parts of a compound microscope along with describing their functions. Two, calculate the total magnification for each objective used. Three, know the guidelines for focusing on a specimen with the different objectives. There's the scanning objective or the 4x lens, the low power objective or the 10x lens, the high power objective or the 40x lens, and then the oil immersion lens or the 100x lens. I do not tend to use the names of the objective because if you use the low powered objective lens, it is not the lowest, and students often get that wrong. And then the high powered objective lens is not the highest. So I tend to call them the 4x lens, the 10x lens, the 40x lens, and then the 100x lens. I will occasionally use oil immersion lens synonymously with the 100x lens. And then be able to estimate the size of a specimen when seen at different magnification powers. 5, understand the rules for proper microscope care. And then 6, define the terms associated with the microscope as well as described in this module and in the textbook. Any question about any of that? In this lab, we're going to be using a compound light microscope. A compound light microscope obviously uses light to view the specimen, and a compound microscope has two lenses, or at least two lenses, that magnify the specimen. I've never seen a microscope having three that did, but it's possible. You need to memorize the names and the functions of these parts. The two lenses that magnify the specimen are the ocular lens, or the eyepiece, number 1, shown here, and number 2, shown here, the objective lenses. Number 3, that's the stage where you put the slide. You hold the slide in place with the stage clip, number 4. Number 5, moves the slide around on the stage so you can view it in different places of the slide or something like that with the finding the specimen. And so that's the stage controls, number 5. Number 6 is the lever for the iris diaphragm. The iris diaphragm opens up and closes down to allow a cone of light, which is formed by the number 7, excuse me, I'm losing my mind here. What is number 7? The condenser, which is a lens, but it does not magnify the specimen. All it does is change the light coming out of the lamp, so you get a cone of light, and the iris diaphragm opens up and closes down that cone of light. You should have the cone of light about equal to the field of view of your objective lens, and I'll talk about that later. And that's what the iris diaphragm is used for opening up and closing down the cone of light coming up from the condenser lens, which is number 7. Number 8 is the coarse focusing knob, where you initially use it to coarsely focus on your specimen. And then once you have the specimen coarsely in focus, you use number 9, the fine focusing knob, to finely focus on your specimen. Number 8 moves the stage quickly Number 9 finely moves the stage, meaning it moves it very slightly. Any questions about those? Number 10 is the light switch for turning on and off the lamp. It's number 12. Number 11 is the rheostat for controlling how much light comes out of the lamp. I never mentioned this to my earlier lab, but this lab doesn't call it a rheostat. Apparently, that's an American name for this thing controlling how much light comes through. He called it the light intensity dial. The person who wrote this up came from Australia, and apparently they don't have the term rheostat or use it. He called it the light intensity dial. Control us how bright or how dim the light is coming from the lamp, the illuminator. Any question about any of that? All right. So there are the different parts of the microscope you need to know. You need to know this table. I suggest you memorize this table. The objective lens, the scanning lens, I call it the 4x power lens. It magnifies 4x times. It's also called the 4x objective lens. Its total magnification is 40x because the total magnification is the magnification of the objective lens times the magnification of the ocular lens. And you can guess that in our lab, all of our microscopes have an objective lens that magnify 10x. So let's come up here. All the microscopes in our lab, at least all the microscopes I've ever seen, have an objective lens that magnifies 10 times. The very best microscopes have an ocular lens. I don't know if I said that last time. They have the best microscopes have an ocular lens that has can magnify 20 times or 20x times. We do not have the best microscopes. Any question about that? The ocular lens can vary, but most microscopes have either a 10x lens in the ocular lens or a 20x lens. I have seen some child microscopes who have a 4x lens in the ocular, but most of them actually are all 10x. There are the very most expensive 20x. The low power lens, I call it the 10x objective lens, magnifies 10 times, and its total magnification is 100x. The high power lens magnifies 40 times. I call that lens the 40x objective lens, and it has a total magnification of 400 times. The oil immersion lens, also called the 100x objective lens, has a power of 100 times or magnifies 100 times, and its total magnification is 1,000 times. Any question about any of that part? You need to know the depth of field. When you're looking at a slide, I can't see this. Let me see if I can. Oops, didn't mean to do that. What I want to do is stop the share. There, I can see it. The depth of field is how much of the object you can see in 3 dimensions under your microscope. So with this right here, you can see it has a top and a bottom, and you can see both the top and the bottom. With the 4x objective lens, it has the greatest depth of field. So we call it a deep depth of field, where oftentimes on an object, you can see both the top of the object and the bottom of the object and the middle of the object, and you don't need to find focus between the two because all of them are clearly in focus. Now, when you go up in power to the next higher lens, the 10x objective lens, you don't have as great of the depth of field. You'll have something like maybe half the depth of field. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm trying to show you half the depth of field. And then when you go up in power to the next higher lens, the 40x lens, it'll be an even smaller depth of field. You can't see the top of the specimen and the bottom of the specimen, at least not clearly, under the 40x lens. You can only see maybe the top of the specimen and then the very highest portion of the specimen. You can focus clearly on those regions, but like the middle of the specimen or the bottom of the specimen, they will be out of focus. And then the oil immersion or the 100x objective lens has the very narrow depth of field. Essentially, you can only focus clearly on one plane going through the specimen. Very narrow depth of field. And so you would not be able to see the top of the specimen and the bottom of the specimen. You'd have to either focus on either the top or the bottom of the specimen. Or maybe only focus in the very center of the specimen. And that's all you would see, at least clearly. Any question about any of that? The field of view is how much of the slide, stop the share again, how much of the slide you can see. Let me use this for our slide. It's bigger. How much of the slide can you see in your field of view? With the 4x objective lens, we have the biggest field of view, and so it would be able to see a field of view something like that. You then go up in power. The 10x objective has a smaller field of view, and it would be something like that. And then the 40x objective lens has a smaller field of view, and it would be something like that. And then you go up in power to the 100x objective lens, and it is a smaller field of view you can see under the microscope, and it would be a little pinprick. You can only see the slide, this little region right here. And that is the size of the cone of light you want to come through the iris diaphragm. What is the field of view for your objective lens? And so for the 4x lens, you want that cone of light to be big because the 4x field of view is big. And then as you go down in size, you need to start shutting down the iris diaphragm until you get to the 100x objective lens, where the cone of light will be very small, almost a pinprick. Any question about that? And that's how you get cooler illumination. That's the best illumination you can from the microscope. And that is you keep the iris diaphragm open to the size of your field of view that you can see under the microscope. It'll give the best contrast and the best resolution. Any question about any of that? Let me start the share if I can figure out how to do that. There we go. Just needed to see the link. All right, some comments. The 4x lens is the easiest to use because it has the deepest field of view. You can see the specimen, the top and the bottom. So it's the easiest to focus and find the specimen. And then it has the largest field of view. So once again, it's easiest to find the specimen. And then the hardest to use is the 100x objective because it has the very narrowest depth of field and the smallest field of view. Any question about any of that? You need to really memorize this table. You should recall that the total magnification is the magnification of the objective lens times the magnification of the ocular lens, which in this case, the ocular lens will be 10x, because all of our microscopes in the lab have an ocular lens of 10x. And the magnification of the virtual microscope you use today will be 10x as well. When you're looking at an image under the microscope, you should know that it's more than just magnified. It's also inverted and reversed. So if we were to look at the letter E under the microscope, we would not see this, we would see that. The E is magnified, inverted, and reversed. So the iris diaphragm has a diameter which can be opened and closed. I call it like a shutter on it, like the shutter on a camera, to allow more or less light to come through the stage. The iris diaphragm affects the contrast of the specimen against its background, making the specimen, if you have the contrast high, appear more easily from the background of the slide, giving you greater resolution. And the iris diaphragm, according to this statement, is the most important tool to adjust the light. There are two tools you have to adjust how much light comes through the microscope into your eye from the lamp. And the first is the rheostat, and the second is the iris diaphragm. Any question about any of that? So with the iris diaphragm, when you're first using the microscope and using the 4x lens, the iris diaphragm should be open, fairly open, not open all the way, but fairly open, to give you a cone of light equal to the field of view. And then as you go up and start using the higher magnification lenses of the objective lenses, you should shut down the iris diaphragm, giving you a cone of light equal to your field of view. All right, when you first use the microscope, you have to unwind the cord, plug it in. Make sure the stage is all the way down using the coarse adjustment knob. Put the scanning objective lens, the 4x lens, in place, because that is the easiest objective lens to begin with. Turn the light on. Place a slide on the stage. And then use the coarse focus adjustment knob to slowly raise the stage and bring the specimen or the microscopic object into coarse focus. You can move the specimen back and forth using the stage controls to get it in the center of your field of view. And once you have it in coarse focus, then use the fine focus knob to adjust it to bring the specimen into fine focus. Once you have the specimen in fine focus, you should never use the coarse adjustment focusing knob. You should only use the fine focusing knob. The reason being is that the our microscopes have the lenses, the objective lenses, in parafocal vision, so that or parafocal focusing, so that when one lens focuses in on a specimen, all the other objective lenses should focus on that specimen. You would not need to use coarse focusing although you may need to finely adjust it using the fine focusing knob. Any question about that? If ever you forget and use the coarse focusing knob, just start all over, go back to the 4x objective lens, get it in coarse focus, and then get it in fine focus. And now only use the fine focusing adjustment knob. Any question about any of that? So before you switch to the next higher powered objective, you should move your specimen into the center of your field of view. The reason being is if the specimen was on the edge of your field of view, and then you go up to the next higher objective lens, it'll have a smaller field of view. So this is where the specimen is. Now the field of view is smaller and the specimen is no longer able to be seen under the microscope with that higher powered objective lens. So you move the specimen into the center of your field of view. And now when you move up, the field of view is smaller, but has the same center. So the specimen will still be observable under the microscope. And then you repeat step 9 whenever you switch from one objective lens to the next higher powered objective lens. Any question about any of that? When going from the 40x objective lens to the 100x lens, there's a special procedure. So this is going to be the, let me get that one. This will be the 40x lens. And this one here, can you guys see these pens? Anyone? All right, I got to stop the zoom because I can't see. There we go. So this is the 40x lens, and this is the 100x lens. You move the 40x lens. Well, it's kind of strange. You don't move it all the way out. You move it halfway so that you can get the oil dropper. I don't have an oil dropper, so pretend this is an oil dropper with an eye drop full of oil to bring the drop of oil to the specimen, which I'm going to go right there. And that right there, I can't show it. The bottom will be where my slide is. And so I'm trying to put the drop of oil down. And then you move the 100x lens over the specimen. And what you're going to have is the drop of oil will be, I'm not saying there it is. Try and move that in the center. I'm trying to get it in the center and I can't. It's very difficult doing that. There we go. About right there. And so the drop of oil will be my fist. And then when you move this over, it'll come through the oil. And so the oil will be touching the slide. Then there'll be a layer of oil. And then we'll have the 100x objective lens. There will be no air in between them. Any question about any of that? Meaning that the 100x lens is close enough to the slide that when you move it in, it will be in the drop of oil. It won't touch the slide, but it will touch that drop of oil. Start my share now. And that's because nobody answered it. I had to stop the share. All right, the purpose for using oil is oil has the same refractive index as glass, which allows more light to be gathered by the lens because when the light comes through the glass and then enters the air, the light will refract, meaning bend, and some of that light will be bent away from the objective lens and will not be collected by the objective lens. If you have oil in there instead, the light will come out of the glass. It will not refract because Oil has the same refractive index as glass, and then the light will go directly to the objective lens. So more light will be collected when you use oil than when you do not. And so when you use oil, you allow more light to be collected, which will also improve the resolution and the clarity of the image, meaning you'll see the specimen better. Any question about any of that? All right, a word of caution, if ever you put oil on the microscope for the 100x lens, only use oil for the 100x lens. But if you move the 40x lens around and you move it where that drop of oil is, the 100x lens, the 40x lens is low enough, it will go through that drop of oil and pick up oil on the lens. So whenever you use oil, it has to be cleaned from both the microscope and the slide. And you should check the 40x lens to see if it has oil on it. And if it does, you should remove the oil from the 40x lens as well as from the 100x lens. Any question about any of that? There it is. You should only clean the oil off the microscope using lens paper. So if you're have oil on the lenses, you should only clean the lenses with lens paper. Lens paper is specially treated paper that has the wood fibers removed, so lens paper does not scratch the lenses. You can read about the troubleshooting. The activity for this lab, we're going to be getting the size of the field of view. Online students will not perform this activity with a microscope and a ruler, where you actually would measure the size of the field of view, but you're going to be using the table that's already filled in below, but you will be expected to know the information contained in the table and how to use the formula in point 5 below. And you can either use the table, memorize the table, or the formula. But this is the procedure that we use if you were actually come into the lab at Clark for measuring the field of view. For the 4x objective lens, the diameter of the field of view is 4.5 millimeters or 4,500 micrometers. For the 10x objective lens, the diameter of the field of view is 1.8 millimeters or 1,800 micrometers. For the 40x lens, the diameter of the field of view is 0.45 millimeters or 450 micrometers. Note that this is smaller than the smallest unit of measurement on the ruler, which is 1 millimeters. So if you were coming into the lab and doing this lab, you'd actually have to estimate this. For you guys, I'm just giving it to you in the table. And it's tricky, although it's pretty easy to do, because 0.45 millimeters, you can come close to that when you're measuring it. But this one, the 100x objective lens, it has a diameter of only 0.18 millimeters or 180 micrometers. And students would have a real hard time getting this estimate because the smallest unit of measure on a ruler is 1 millimeter. Any question about any of that? Why is it important to know the diameter of the field of view for the different objectives? Because it allows you to estimate the size of the specimen that you are observing. For example, if I were using the 4x objective lens and I had a specimen that took up half of the field of view, What is the size of that specimen? I'm not going to say, so somebody's going to have to guess.
Little over 2 millimeters.
Yeah, it's exactly 2.25 millimeters, or half of this diameter of the field of view. Okay? But good guy. Good job. Thank you for going. Otherwise, we'll just sit there until I would decide to move on because I wasn't going to tell you the answer. Anyways, if you know this, you can get the estimate for the size of your specimens. And online students are not going to be doing activity two, but you should understand what the activity is. You'll be doing a virtual exercise similar to this laboratory exercise. And we expect you to know and understand the material in this exercise or the virtual exercise. So you go through that. Activity three is making a wet mount. You're not going to be held responsible for this. You won't be tested on it. But if you have not made a wet mount in biology, was it 160 or 162, whatever it is, you should read through this because you really should know how to make a wet mount. All it is usually a specimen of live something and usually put in water, or it could be put in media or hay infusion broth, whatever. And then you view the specimen directly under a clean slide. So you should go through that and how to make a wet mount. But like I said, if you know how to do it, you will not be tested on it. All right. You do need to know how to handle the microscope, meaning how to put away the microscope and how to correctly handle the microscope. You'll not be handling real microscopes, but you are expected to know how to correctly store a microscope and obviously how to clean a microscope as well. There's space in there. After use, the following steps must be performed prior to storing your microscope. Lower the stage completely. Remove the slide. Remove oil from the slide and remove oil from the lens only using lens paper. Chem wipe, paper towels are not allowed to touch the lenses. You may use lens paper to clean the slide, but you could also use, well, any paper like chem wipes. Make sure that the 4x objective is in place, meaning put the 4x objective over where you are viewing the specimen. Lower the light intensity to a minimum, switch the power of the light off, unplug the microscope, wrap the cord neatly around the microscope. You don't need to do number 7. I don't ever have my students do number 7. And then carry the microscope, always using both hands. Grab the arm of the microscope with one hand and support the base of the microscope with the other. Let me see if I can see a microscope. So here is either the arm of the microscope, so you can hold it there. This one actually you can't see it, but this one has a handhold for holding the microscope about right there. But you can also hold it right there where the arm of the microscope is. And then the other hand should be under the base of the microscope right there. Use two hands for moving the microscope. Where were we? And then place the microscope back in the same cupboard that you got it from. Microscopes have a front and a back. Put it in the same way you got it out. And in our microscopes, you put the front of the microscope in first. And so the back of the microscope should be facing you. So you should know the terms of the microscope. Don't need to know the references. And then we have some video clips on general microscope focusing. View that video. And then we have a video on using oil, putting oil on the microscope. So watch that. And then practice your microscope skills by using the virtual microscope. This may be slow to download if you have a slow internet connection. I have a fairly fast internet connection, but it's still loading. Give it a minute here. All right, so there's the microscope, and those are the guides we're going to be exploring. And then the question mark tells you what to do. So there's the microscope. When you click, nothing happens. But if you click there, it allows you to choose a slide from the box. So that opens the box is what it does. And you need to look at the onion root plant cells right there. Course focus. Too far, someplace around there. Then fine focus. Move the specimen you're looking at in the center of the field of view. It looks pretty good. Go up to the 10x lens. From now on, you only fine focus. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get that. Let me go back to the 4x lens. I'll try it. I try to look in on a cell here, but I'm not seeing it. All right, fine focus. 40x lens. Oh, there's the one I want to look at. Right there. It actually looks pretty fine focus. And then you go to the 100x lens. Remember, there's a special procedure. For the 100x lens, you have to add immersion oil. So the directions tell you, click there, it'll add a drop of oil, and then you have to finely focus. Let me see if I can find what I was trying to view. I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is. The cells, a cell with the actual chromosomes in it. And let's change the light adjustment a little bit. All right. Any questions about how to use the microscope? Whenever you're done using oil, you need to use lens paper. I bet it's going to tell me wrong. Never use this for cleaning the sensitive electronics, meaning the glass. So you need to use this. I didn't notice the question mark there for the earlier lab. And there you clean the oil off the immersion lens, oil immersion lens, the 100x lens. And you also need to look at the animal slides, the spider leg, course focus. And obviously this is so big, depends where you want to view for finely focusing. I'm just sort of finely focusing there. And then move up. That's how you use the microscope, the virtual microscope. Please practice on the virtual microscope. It's actually quite good. It'll allow you to have some familiarity with using the microscope. As well as you got questions in the handout, which have a question for the virtual microscope. All right, any questions about the virtual microscope? And then we have a link for practice naming the different parts of the microscope. Press play, tells you what to do here. There's the play button there. Be very careful on the start. This will try and download something on your computer, so try not to download anything on your computer. Press start there, and let me see where the question is. Oh, question is right here. Which one is the stage? I'm going to deliberately give the first one correct. So here's the stage. If you give the correct answer, it'll be green. Ocular lens, This is not a bifocal microscope. I'm going to go there, and you see how it's bonk? It used to turn red, but it's not. Let's go there. That's also wrong. Let's go there. And see how it's purple? That means that's the answer. And it's red because you got it wrong, I think 3 times. The resolving nose piece. Let's go here, here, and now here. And it's orange because we got 2 times wrong. High power objective. I'm going to go there. That's obviously wrong. And well, that's not the high power objective. That's the oil immersion objective. So let's try there. All right. I was thinking that was the oil immersion objective, but they're saying that's the high power objective. Fine adjustment knob. Let's do that one correct. If you do it correct, it'll be green the first time. All right. That's how you use this. Like I said, make sure you don't download something to your computer by accident. And then fill in the blanks with the correct answers to the worksheet. I should actually get your worksheet. It's a little different than mine. Probably be best to download this. Oop, I got the lecture, sorry. Let's go back. I need to get the lab. I'm not seeing how to download that. Oh, there it is. Oh, that'll be good enough. So, fill in the blanks with the correct answer. 4A, when focusing a specimen, you should always start with which objective lens? 4B, when using low power, high power, and the oil immersion objectives, only the what focusing adjustment knob should be used. 4C, the type of microscope used in the lab is the what type of microscope? You cannot say the light microscope because it's a 2-word answer, although one of them could be light. You cannot say the Nikon microscope because that's not a type of microscope, that's a brand of microscope. So you need to say a 2-word answer there. And 4D, you should carry the microscope by holding on to what part of the microscope with one hand and by supporting the other part of the microscope with the other hand. And then 4E, the objectives are attached to this part of the microscope, which can be rotated to click the different objective lenses into place. So name the part here. 4F, if the microscope had an ocular lens of 10x and a high power objective of 45x, what would be the microscope's total magnification? Give that answer there. 4G, when the stage is moved left, the image moved through the ocular moves in what direction? When the stage is moved forward, the image viewed through the ocular moves in which direction? Answer that there. 4H, which objective lens provides the largest field of view? Answer that there. 4I, which objective lens has the smallest field of view? Answer that there. 4J, of the methods for the light adjustment, which is the most important on the microscope? 4K, how large is the field of view when using the high power objective lens? You need to answer in millimeters or micrometers. You know, I thought I changed this. It doesn't look like I did. 2, suppose a typical bacteria cell is 2 micrometers in diameter, and the circle below, which represents the field of view, when viewed with the oil immersion objective. State how many cells can fit across the circle under the oil immersion. For full credit, show calculations in your answer. I'll tell you what the other question is. It must be 4HIJKL, and that is how many hairs of the spider leg can you see under the microscope with the oil immersion lens? And I'll get that downloaded so you'll get that worksheet. But that's supposed to be here, and for some reason this is showing the older worksheet. All right, any question? If not, I'm gonna, oops, I stop the share. I'm gonna, all right, I just downloaded the new worksheet, so make sure you download the newest worksheet that I just posted today. It does have question L, 4L, I think.